Hello and welcome to our webinar series, What's New at AmericanAncestors.org. My name is Ginevra Morse. I'm the Director of Education and Online Programs at American Ancestors and New England Historic Genealogical Society. I will be moderating today's event. We are a nonprofit organization supported by our members and donors. We provide resources and expertise in nearly all aspects of family history and are pleased to offer such programming for our members and friends around the world. Now, I also want to note that we are, of course, broadcasting from home with various limitations and distractions, and we apologize in advance if there are any interruptions from our end, and we do thank you for your patience. Even if we do lose connection, you will have access to a full recording on our website. Our presenter today is Don LeClair. Don works on our database collections and is responsible for the search experience on AmericanAncestors.org. He has 30 years of experience in the software industry, working in and leading engineering and product management teams. Don is a longtime member of NEHGS and enjoys tracing his ancestors through New England and New York. So this is the third session of our new webinar series, and every 3 months we will provide a new installment that reviews the most recent additions and changes to our award-winning website, AmericanAncestors.org. So after a brief introduction, our presenter will highlight some of our newest databases and additions to our digital collections. Then we'll discuss a few projects that are in progress and wrap up with questions from you, our listeners. And throughout the presentation, we'll also share a few enhancements to the search experience on our website. At any point during the presentation, feel free to type your question in the panel to the right of your screen. We'll address those after today's session. There is no handout for this presentation, but as I mentioned, we are recording this event, and starting tomorrow, you can easily go back and review any of the content from the presentation on our website. So if you missed something on today's first listen, don't worry, you can always go back, review the presentation later. All right, so without further ado, I will turn things over to Dawn. And Don, I can't hear you, so you might want to try calling in or...
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hi.
Yes.
My apology. Sorry about that. Thank you all again for joining, and we appreciate you taking your time out of your day to support us this afternoon. So the goal today is to talk about the new resources that arrived between January and March. And we're going to help you learn how to use them and how to get the most in general out of your membership with American Ancestors. So the focus is what's been new in the last 3 months and available online. We'll talk about what comes up on the database side of the world as well as on digital collections. So to make sure we're clear, to search our databases, you would start under the search menu at the top left, and then you can see the search all databases as well as the ability to search by category as well as browse databases. So these are the main areas for our database search function. And we're not going to go into a lot of detail about how to use search today, but it's also to make sure that you do know where to start off when you're doing your search work on American Ancestors. So for our databases, to provide some context, we currently have 468 different databases online. You can see by the chart here what kind of categories those databases fall into. And the largest category of information we have is vital records, which is birth, marriages, deaths, that sort of thing. The next largest would be the census, typically census, but the tax and voter lists are in that as well. And then we get into genealogies and biographies, and then the purple stripe is court, land, and probate. And then the last one, which we'll be talking about a little bit further on today, is journals and periodicals, which is a special category here. And we have a lot of resources that are not available in any other places. So in that collection of databases, we have 1.4 billion names to search. And if we move forward, you can see that it's certainly there is quite a bit of focus on the United States shown by the word cloud, but we do have records available from a variety of countries around the world to expand your search horizons. And if we look at the individual states, we can see that it's not just New England. That is a question that comes up often with our name, but we cover New York, Pennsylvania, and pretty much every state in the United States is also available. So it's quite a breadth of resources, and hopefully you'll be interested in the things that are coming coming out over the last quarter. So as I said, the focus of this session is not on how to search AmericanAncestors.org, but we do want to point out a couple of things, important resources that you can leverage to help you with your research. So one is if you look under the Learn menu, we have the expert subject guides for family history research. So if you were to click on that, there is an item there for using AmericanAncestors.org. So this document gives you an introduction to search in general, but it goes through pretty much a detailed explanation of how to use different aspects of search using advanced search, database, category search, favorites, all of these things. So you can either read this through as an informative document on how to do search, but you can also click on those links, such as using wildcards, to see specifically how to take advantage of specific features for your search experience. And I would like to, if you're interested in, rather than reading about search, having attending or participating in a webinar about how to, the search experience on American Ancestors, I'm very excited to be offering this coming May 14th, a session on searching databases presented by Molly Rogers, one of my coworkers, who does a great job of explaining how to use search and how to solve interesting problems and provide useful tips and techniques on how to get the most out of your search experience. So that is on May 14th at 3 o'clock, and the registration is available for that. And I mentioned at the beginning, we will also be talking about the digital book and manuscript collections, which is here. So basically, these are focused typically on books and manuscripts from our library collection. They are separate from our databases, but there's a great additional resource to help you with your research activities. And you would find this underneath the library menu. So if you were to click through on the digital collection space under the library menu, you'll see there's really two parts to that. There's our Jewish Heritage Center provides quite a bit of information there, as well as the our Stanton Avery special collections from the library. So those two items are there under the digital collections area, and in total, there's over 750,000 pages in that other area known as digital collections. So I know we get a lot of questions about database search, but I think that this is maybe one of the underutilized aspects of American Ancestors, and we'll hopefully show you some of the things that are new, and you can take advantage of those in the coming weeks and months as you're doing your research. So let's go forward and take a look at the database additions we've done over the last 3 months. So the presentation that we have here today is going to really expand on the information that we provide in our blog called Database News. The URL listed there below is dbnews.americanancestors.org. So what we do on the database team is anytime we provide a new or updated database, we put out a blog entry. Generally, there's usually 2 or 3 per week. So you can go to the website to see those and get a description of what's been added. You can also go to dbnews.americanancestors.org, provide your email address, and if you're interested, you'll get an email update whenever we have a new addition or update to our databases online. So if you missed this session or you're curious what happens, in between our quarterly updates, that's a great place to go see what's happening. So it's useful, I think, to look at information by individual databases. So one of the great capabilities we have is the Browse Database function. And you can see that under the search menu. It's highlighted there in brown, Browse Databases A to Z. So if you click on that, you'll go to our screen, which will list each of the 468 databases we currently have online. We recently updated the search experience, so if you can see where the word Roman is typed, you have the ability to put in a keyword. A keyword could be a location, like a state. You could enter Vermont, or a topic, like, for example, Mayflower, and it will go through and give you a list of the databases that meet those search criteria. So in this particular example, I've selected Roman as in Roman Catholic, and now I've rapidly, as I typed, it's narrowed down that list to 468 databases to, in this case, the 5 that have something to do with Roman Catholics. So it's a great way to, if you're thinking about a topic, and if we have data, and use the browse A to Z function to find out about those databases. So given that we've used this as a test case with the Roman Catholic ones, I'll start off with what's new, with what's happening with our largest project. So I'm sure many of you know from previous announcements that we've been collaborating with the Archdiocese of Boston to digitize their sacramental records from their founding in Massachusetts in 1789 up through 1920. And this is our largest ongoing project here at American Ancestors. It is indeed a work in progress, and we're continuing to scan, index, and provide new content pretty much every week. So what we've done over the last 3 months is we've added 24 new parishes in the eastern Massachusetts side of the world. This encompasses 108 new volumes, completed a total of 645 volumes so far. So this project we've indexed at this point, there's over 8.2 million searchable names available. So it's really a very large ongoing project to bring forth a really valuable, I think, set of resources for especially people looking at their Catholic family history. If you're looking for a particular parish, which many people are, you can look at the blog database news a moment ago. You can search for a parish name. We always list the names of the parishes that have been added, so you could search through the blog to see if that parish has been completed yet. And you can also look at the way we create our volume names, and the volume names are the name of the parish with parentheses, the name of the town that parish is in. So this is the search page for the Massachusetts Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Boston records. You can see that we have it pretty highly indexed. So in addition to being able to provide the first name, the last name, we have the years of the record type. Now these are the sacraments that are recorded by the church, so they're typically going to be baptism, although there's often birth information in the same area as the baptismal information, as well as marriages and to some extent burials, and other first communions are also generally available. So it's all of the rites that would be normally recorded in the Catholic Church. You can specify a location that you want to search in, could be a town, and then you can, in the case of confirmations, if you happen to know a confirmation name, you can search for that. And last but not least is for family members, we have captured family members including the typical mother, father, and spouse, which you would see, parents, for example, on a baptismal registration, and you would see spouse on a marriage. But we also have been capturing the witness names. So if someone has come as a witness to a wedding or to a baptism, those names are also searchable and are indeed indexed and available in the database. So one of the things that I always like to point out is that database description, the first page is the form for filling out, just explaining the kind of fields that are available. But a few pages down, there is additional information in terms of search tips. We have sample images with some specific records from the collection that we have there, as well as a full description of the database. And we're showing the values that are here for the Archdiocese of Boston records, but we do this capability for every database search page. So it gives you a convenient set of reference information that's available on the search page, so you can look at it while you're preparing your search criteria. And when you drill through to a record, we'll show the same information at the bottom of the screen. So don't forget to page down, because there's probably something there that could help you out. So in this case, I'm going to show the search results. One of the interesting things about doing the Archdiocese of Boston is that, especially in the early years, many of the records are written in Latin. So in addition to providing the Latin names that are what's actually written in those church records, we have provided a translation of that last name to an English first name, excuse me. So you see in this particular case, I've searched for a Dennis Kelly, and I found a record for Dionysium, also Dennis Kelly. So this works pretty nicely, but it's a good thing to be aware of is that not the Latin name to an English name mapping isn't a simple one-to-one relationship. Sometimes there's different choices in terms of what that mapping might be. So if you're confident that you have a relative that you're expecting to find in one of these parish records and you can't, then you might suggest, if you don't find them initially, try reducing or searching without a first name to see if you can find that. Perhaps the Latin name was translated to something that was a little less obvious and you didn't find a match because of that. And if you do find that they're wrong, please let us know in Webmaster. We're happy to add a corrected spelling. So then when you click through, in this case, I see the search result. And now for my Dennis Kelly, you can see the handwritten record, which was actually written in Latin. So that's not typical of our databases, but it's an important thing to be aware of when you're going through and using this database. So this is our largest ongoing project. We have several other ongoing study projects that we also have updates on during the last 3 months. So the first of these is the Western Massachusetts Families. This is edited by Helen Ullman, and she produces sets of sketches. And the study project is really built around the people who were recorded in the 1790 census in the western part of Massachusetts. So she goes and writes and collects the sketches about individual families by town. So the focus of this is which town does the person live in, and then they'll publish information with the person that was recorded in the census with their spouse and children all in one sketch. This is also available in book form. So we showed an example here of the Western Massachusetts Family. Oftentimes, the sketches come out first on American Ancestors in the database, and then they'll be compiled into volumes that are sold when a new volume is complete and ready to go. And this database is available to the individual level and above any HTS members. So you can see the example of the set of sketches that we did last month. And this particular database is indexed by first and last name as well as volume and page. So it's a straightforward level of indexing. And one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure I showed this is that it's useful to look at the database search page just to see what fields are actually indexed. Because if you were to switch to the advanced search page and you put in fields that are not indexed, then you wouldn't get a hit. You can see in the lower right-hand corner of this page that there's a button that says switch to advanced search. So some people prefer to always use the advanced search. That's your choice. And we try to make it easy to go back and forth. So if you get a link from us or you're looking at DB News post and you get taken to a database search page, you can switch back to the advanced search page and be able to search that database through that other path. And the other thing I wanted to mention is at the top right corner is these volumes are the sketch names. So if you don't want to search for an person like Merrill, you can also just use the pull down in the browse database, find the volume that is Mary Merrill, click the browse button, it'll take you directly to the start of her sketch. And one other thing I'd like to point out about this particular study project is that it is actually open. So if Helen Ullman does indeed write sketches, but she's also an editor. So if you have family that you have researched in Western Massachusetts and have people that have been captured in the 1790 census, you're welcome to reach out to Helen and provide that information and see if you could be the author of a sketch yourself and contribute to this ongoing study project and make that information available to other researchers in the future. And you can see the URL at the bottom of this page and what's the process for making a submission to look at that Western Massachusetts Family Study Project. So it's kind of a nice one that we have it open. So it's we certainly want to encourage people to participate and provide content for that. Early New England Families is another one of our study projects. This one is actually driven by the guide called Torrey's New England Marriages Prior to 1700. So this was a really important early genealogical work that listed all of the known couples that were married in New England prior to 1700. And Alicia Crane Williams has been using this as a basis for her study project by identifying subjects in that simple, thin marriage record and provide more information, more complete information about these couples and their immediate families. So in the Early New England Family Study Project, we added These 5 sketches, which came out over the last quarter, the naming convention for this is the person's, in this case, the man's name that's mentioned in the marriage record, and then the year they were married, which ties them back to the Tory manuscript. So those 5 came out, and similar to the earlier study project, we do have a published book series that's been coming out with the early New families as well. The search page on this has some additional information, and then more than the first and last name, we also have the years and the actual record types. So we've indexed birth, marriage, and death information for the contents of the study project, as well as the location. So you could pick the state or town that the person may have lived in as part of your search criteria. And just as in the previous one, there is a volume pull down, so you can go directly to a volume. If you hear about or read a sketch, or if you read about a sketch through an announcement, you can go directly and just read that sketch. And one special item on this particular database is that in your search results, you can search, and here I've searched for Samuel Thatcher, and I'll get the records that relate to Samuel Thatcher, including in this case, we can see in the second one we have spouse names included, but we have a PDF link as part of that search results. So if you get to a sketch that you're interested in, there's a PDF link. You can directly download the PDF of that sketch rather than having to print out potentially the individual pages. If there's 3 or 4 pages in a sketch, that can save you a few moments and get that electronically directly from that search page. And the next study project is our early Vermont settlers. This is another study project that we had that's based on the people who settled in what's now the state of Vermont prior to the Revolutionary War. Scott Andrew Bartley is the person driving the study project, and he has been primarily thus far focused on Windham and Windsor counties in Vermont. But his approach then is to go through and do a research on these individual families, provide a sketch just like the other projects do, providing information about them, their spouses, and children. One thing that's unusual about the version that came out in this quarter is it includes a sketch called Fort Dummer Soldiers. So Fort Dummer was a fort in modern day Guilford, Vermont. It's actually now a state park there. And included in this sketch called Fort Dummer Soldiers is there's a number of people who spent time at the fort as doing their military service, but they didn't necessarily become residents of Vermont or not in that area. So the sketch on the Fort Dummer Soldiers will have a list of the people, give you information about when they served at Fort Dummer, and if they do have family information, that's provided as part of that one single sketch. All of the other sketches will have family information about the individual people. So if we go through, and then in this case, I'll just go, rather than doing a search, just to show you can put in Fort Dummer Soldiers. That's the name of the volume for that particular item. You can click the browse button once you've selected that on the pull down list, and then you will get the first page of that particular volume, which is a 36-page item. So it's somewhat significantly longer than the typical sketch in this study project. But it starts off with a short description of what Fort Dummer was, the period of time that was covered from 1724 to 1756. And then alphabetically by last name, they go through the various soldiers that served in that fort, and they may have something like a short entry like the one for Samuel Adams, when he was there for 6 weeks in July of 1749, to others that were there, had a spouse and other family members, and they will appear in that particular sketch. And another area where we have ongoing updates is the topic of genealogical journals. I think I mentioned a few minutes ago that one of the places where we have a unique set of collections, a unique set of databases on American ancestors is the genealogical journal area, in that we have partnered with quite a number of societies to publish their journals and make them searchable online, typically after 5 years after they pass. So because many of these journals sell reprints for some period of time. But we're very happy to have announced in the last quarter that we made a new agreement to publish Vermont Genealogy online. This is the publisher of that is the Genealogical Society of Vermont, but they joined up with us, and we added this quarter all of volumes 1 through 19, which period from 1996 through 2004. So that is now current. We added all of the all previously published volumes this quarter, and one of them add a new volume every year. And another genealogical journal that we actually are the publisher for, which is the Mayflower Descendant, we have added volume 63, which was from 2014. It's available online. And these journals are available, both journals are available to individual and above NEHGS members. So for the search side of this one, I want to just briefly show a category search. The journals are indexed in a unique, in a consistent way, which is that what's been indexed for them is the name of the individual, and then the year in your search criteria are the year that that journal was published. So it's not the year of, for example, if they mention someone's birth, it's not going to be the year of their birth, it's going to be the year that that article appeared in the journal. And then the keywords, in this case, are usually used for searching for article titles. Most all the databases have the article titles searchable. So if you run across an article title and you want to follow through on that, you can make that part of your search criteria. And that can also be extremely helpful in a number of journals when articles span multiple releases of the journal. That happens in many of them, certainly our own, the Genealogical Society register will have articles that could span 2, 3, or 4 different volumes of that database. So if you use that keyword search, then you can use that to find how the article gets split across multiple volumes. And then just 2 other things I wanted to point out. One is the see all databases in the category. So when you're using the category search, we'll search all of the databases in that category. Right now, the category of journals and periodicals has 20 databases, the newest one being Vermont Genealogy. And so if you clicked on that, you would be able to see the database A to Z list for that. And then I talked about the advanced search before, but we also, from the category search, we also have the ability to switch to advanced search. So having said that, to do a just sample search for Elizabeth Crown, and here I can see there was an article in 2013 for her that was part of my search criteria, and I can see that the article is there, and I have multiple references for her across several pages of this article under the title of Who was the Father of Betsy Crown? And now I can either click on the name, which will give me a record display showing me the extract of that, or I can click on the view image link, and then I will see the page image directly that is in that particular article. So in this particular case, we've selected Vermont Genealogy to view the image, and we can see the article, Who was the Father of Betsy Crown? And one of the reasons I chose this is because this is, I think, one of the wonderful values of searching for genealogical journals is that oftentimes they will address interesting or challenging problems. The gist of this article is that there's a Betsy Crown, and she's often reported with the incorrect parents. And in some cases, it's hard to find parents because you'll find multiple families of the same name. This case is a little bit more complicated than that, but here's someone who's done a professional job of researching this and really clarifying the proper parentage of Betsy Crown and explaining both what is the common erroneous value as to what the correct value is. So this is the kind of thing that is a great value add over doing just simple searches for vital records and potentially coming to the wrong conclusion. So I would say if you haven't tried looking at the category of our journal databases, give it a try. I would recommend using the category search function, sticking with just pretty much a first and last name, and maybe you'll be able to find some interesting tidbits for your research activities. So next, I just talk about a new database that came out just a few weeks ago. It's a little bit unusual in that it's about heraldry. We have one other one, the Gore Roll of Arms is called, but this was one that was interesting, was done by the Committee on Heraldry here at the New England Historic Genealogical Society. So we have had a committee for a long time that goes through and authenticates and preserves and records the coats of arms that were born in the United States by citizens living abroad. So oftentimes, these are people who were 17th century immigrants to New England who had arms from whatever country they came from. And then we'll have a page in this book for many of those who showing it. I think it just beautifully hand illustrated drawings of the heraldry along with additional information. So this one is available to individual members and above. But if we click forward, we have index this one by first and last name. We also have years, and we'll show you the layout of a page in a moment, but there's really two sections to the heraldry information. One is the person who bore the coat of arms, in terms, may have information on where they lived at least, and often some birth or death information about them. And there's also information about the person who applied for the arms to verify the arms. So you'll have different record types. Typically, we used residence as these record types because they talk about where someone lived. But there are also some cases where we have immigration, even birth and death, and other records in this database. And the locations would include both locations here in the United States and potentially locations from where those folks came from. So if I search for Bridget Lyle, then I would see in this case, I've got a residence of 1672 in Cambridge, and I can go through and I can click on that one. And I will then see the coat of arms that were borne by Bridget Lyle. Interesting enough, is she's obviously a woman with the name of Bridget, and she was the wife of the president of Harvard College who was a man who served as president of Harvard College from 1670 to 1675. So it talks about where she came from, as well as that she settled in Massachusetts. And you've got the description or the blazon or what is that coat of arms, and you can see the drawing that's there. If you happen to look at this database online, we put those images through at a slightly higher resolution than normally we do, so you can zoom in on those and get a really nice perspective on the nice, in fact, beautiful drawings that came along in the database. So this is one that I think a few of us, when we were working on this, getting this index and put online, that it's almost fun to just browse through the book, even if you're not related to those people, just to see the interesting coats of arms that are there. So then, in terms of other database news from the data side, we have updated database. This was one from the town of Seymour, Connecticut. We've had 4 volumes of their vital records online previously. There was another volume available to us that became, under copyright laws, became available to us. So we just recently added volume 5, which covers the year 1911 to 1914. So now we have those town vital records for that period from 1700 through 1914. The town of Seymour, Connecticut was named by the former governor of Connecticut, Thomas Seymour, and previously it had been part of Derby, Connecticut. So that's a new one available also for individual members and above. And here you can see that this is a vital records type database. We have this one indexed very nicely. You have first, last name, years, location, and then often we have parent or spouse names available. And just as a quick comment on the family members, when those are available, we always say in our definition that this is, you can use these search teams when available. Not every record has mother, father, or spouse in them, but certainly if you start doing a search and you get a lot of records under a given name, then being able to specify one of their parent or spouse names can be a way to refine that search. I would normally suggest you do that after you got a first return and whatever name you're searching for, and then use that to winnow down the results to the ones you're looking for. And then you see if we collect one, then this is this is an extract of the birth certificates from Seymour, Connecticut. They are not the actual handwritten town records, but it's very easy to read and an excellent source of reference information for this part of Connecticut. So next, we have an update to the Suffolk County probate file papers. So this is a category of databases, which are probate file papers, for which we have most of the counties in Massachusetts, and these are the actual file papers. So this is not an extract of probate or transcript, it's the actual printed records that you can see. You can see the sample of the cover page or the envelope that the records were in this particular case. So we added to that database on the probate file papers additional cases for Suffolk County. So this is one where we're still getting additional pages coming through, and as soon as we can get them online, we add them. This information is not available on any other location. And this update covers 1842 to 47. And one of the other nice things about this is this database is available to all members, so you can be a guest member, not have to pay us any money for a paid membership, and you would get access to the Suffolk County probate file papers as well as the other file paper databases for Massachusetts. So that gives us a summary of what's new on the database side. So then I wanted, as we talked about before, we have digital collections, and we have additional updates on the digital collections side of the house. So the digital collections, as I mentioned before, they're really rooted in our library collections. You'll find content from the library. They'll have oftentimes manuscripts as well as that. So these are things where they're generally text searchable documents, and whereas the databases we've just been covering are record oriented around birth, marriage, death, and residence. So to look at the digital manuscripts, we would go back to the library section of the menu, click digital book and manuscripts collection, and then we will have the, as I said before, the Jewish Heritage Center, as well as our Stanton Avery collection. So we have both sides here. What I'll talk about first is what's happening on the Jewish Heritage Center. So the Jewish Heritage Center, or the Weiner Family Jewish Heritage Center, is part of NEHGS and American Ancestors. They joined us some time ago, and they've been providing a variety of manuscripts and whatnot through digital collections. So if you click through onto the Jewish Heritage Center, you will see there's a definition of this project called the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society of Boston. And this is a project for which they're very actively working at digitizing and bringing these records online. So basically this was an organization established in the Boston area to help Jewish immigrants to the United States and help them get settled. And there's been sort of two aspects to this project. We earlier had actually done a small project on the database side where we have information that was done in a tabular format about Jewish immigrants to the United States coming through. But later on, they switched over to a slightly different format, and that was around 1930 to having case files. So if we click forward, and that's the information that we're providing in the digital collections space. So for this, there's a definition about this project, which you can see there. The case studies provide interesting information, more detailed information about the family, usually when they came here. Can be additional documentation about the people that came through as well. So as we said, in this one, we've added over 3,300 new pages to the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. If you were to browse that collection, clicking the browse button, that would take you through to give you a list, a browsable list of with thumbnails of the pages that are available in that. If you didn't see, given that there are now thousands of pages, you can also use the search box at the upper left by putting in a name, typically a last name, or a location to do searches for individual people. But if you click through and looked at one of the examples on a case study file, here's a case of an individual that came here in the 20th century from Poland, and we actually have in that file a copy of their Polish passport. So pretty interesting and useful document for anyone coming in, and there are other family papers and documentation available in this collection as well. So that's the update for this quarter on the Jewish Heritage Society. If we look on the our Stanton Avery Special Collections, which is the regular library side of the fence, then we have several updates. There are some that are open access, meaning that you don't have to have a paid membership to search these. And I have some examples here. We have the diary and sermon notes of Nehemiah Porter. We have the year range, and we have a manuscript number, which I'll come back to and mention in a moment, but that parenthetical comment of MSSC 992 is the actual manuscript number, which can be useful. And then we have a diary from a physician from Chester, Massachusetts, and then we have some papers from some militia officers from King William's War, Captain Charles Frost and Major John Hill, with their family papers were also added. So if you look on the next page, I showed you a moment ago that there's a search page in the digital collections area. You can specify in that search criteria a manuscript number. So if you see an update from the digital collections side saying that they have a new manuscripts available online, one of the things you could search for is that manuscript number and then be able to find that. So the example here, I put in MSSC 982, that's for the Diary of Nehemiah Porter, and then it comes back, and now I can see the set of 40 run results that match that. You can see in the subject, it is the Nehemiah Porter diaries, and you have information about an almanac, and then there'll be other documentation that's available from that manuscript online. You can simply click on the thumbnail or the title to go drill down and then see the details for that particular item. So here you can see, and once I'm into the collection or this place, that almanac, which is part of the set of papers for Thomas Porter, I have the screen images there. I can zoom in and out. You can see that up at the top left, that little red line shows you how much of the original image is currently in the display. I can print this. I can also download the image, and then up at the very top in that circle will tell you which page you're looking at. So we're here looking at page 1 out of 40. You can simply click on the next button to go browse through the rest of the content in this particular folder. Now, the next materials are new updates that came out in the last 3 months for contributing members. This would be the equivalent to the paid type memberships, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So the two main items here are a record of the Aspinwall family of Muddy River. This is an area now known as Brookline, or part of Brookline, Massachusetts. And this is a handwritten family genealogy that dates from 1891. And then the next one is actually Bible record transcriptions. Is something we have quite a number of manuscripts on file with family Bible records that have been donated in the library catalog. So here we have 44 that became available. I've just listed just 2 of them here just as a sample. The Bible record for the Bartlett families, as well as the Waite and Bentley families. So if you click forward to that, then we can have, here's an example of, this is that Aspinwall family diary. So you can see someone with nice handwriting, at least much nicer than mine, has written out the beginning here of a 86-page family history on that particular family. And the same thing was talked about before, available with the next, and you also have the ability to download images if you want to capture those for your records, or keeping electronic copies of things that you would need to refer to for your own research notes. So the updates that come out for the digital collections normally appear in the Weekly Genealogist. So periodically, usually once a quarter or so, they will put an entry in the Weekly Genealogist. This one's actually, I think, from December, which will describe both what's been added to the Jewish Heritage Center records, as well as to the our Stanton Avery collections. So you can see the format that will appear. So if you watch your Weekly Genealogist, if you subscribe to that, you'll get them. If you don't subscribe to it, the URL for the Weekly Genealogist is at the bottom of the page. So you can go to that URL, you can browse through those, you can search through that, or you can sign up and have it sent to you through email. And the last topic we wanted to cover before we open up for question and answer is some projects in process. So this will give you, I think this is 2 folds. One is it'll give you a peek at some projects that we have in process that are not currently available. And maybe this will give you an opportunity that if you have some extra time on your hands, if maybe now that you're not commuting, if you're at home for the next month and you have some time you'd like to be able to do something different with, maybe you could get personally involved in the indexing process. So we have a couple of projects that I wanted to talk about. The first of those is the Provident Institution for Savings, which seems like a maybe unusual database for us. But what it is the Provident Institution for Savings was founded in the city of Boston in 1816. It was actually the first savings bank in the United States. Interestingly, it was set up by James Savage, who did quite a bit of genealogy work and was involved with the early days with NEHGS, as well as Bishop John Chevres from the Catholic Church. And one of their founding principles was to encourage and self-improvement of the poor of Boston. So this was a bank saving institution that was focused on essentially the poor immigrant community in Boston. So this is particularly then interesting because we're getting information about people that were laborers in Boston, as well as people that came from other countries and were now working in the city. And so oftentimes in these records, we will find, in addition to the name of an individual, where they were born, and something on the order of half of the people that we've seen in this database so far came from Ireland. And if you've done Irish research, one of the lovely bits of information here is, rather than saying they were born in Ireland, it tells you which county they were born in Ireland, which is really an invaluable aid to tracking back Irish ancestors into Ireland. So here we have an example here where we're showing some people that came from Boston, but there are also some from Cork in Ireland and others from Germany. So yeah, there's information that's been indexed then about where they came from, last name, and it's relatively straightforward process to read those pages, put that into a spreadsheet, and send them back to us, something you can do from the comfort of your home. The other project that we're looking for volunteers for is we've recently expanded our agreement with the Archdiocese of Boston to one of its organizations is the Catholic Cemetery Association, which operates about 25 cemeteries in Massachusetts. So cemetery records are separate from the sacramental records from the Archdiocese. In fact, Catholic Cemeteries is as a separate institution itself. So here we have some examples from the Catholic Mount Auburn burials, as well as the Holy Cross and Malden burials, where we have information about a family name, people who've been interred, people who've acquired plots in these cemeteries. So if it's something you might be interested in helping out with, it's an opportunity to expand upon that set of information from Catholic cemeteries, which are not currently available anywhere else online. So I think it's a useful resource for many people, and this could be a chance for you to perform a little act of genealogical kindness for other people, if not for yourselves. You may be able to find things of interest to you, but you'll also be helping out other people. So if you have an interest in getting involved in volunteering, this can be done with a few hours to many hours, as much time and interest as you have. You can email rachel.adams@nehds.org. She's our database services volunteer coordinator. She'd be happy to help you out and get you started. As I said, do it from home. You don't have to travel. A great way to spend a little bit of your extra time. So hopefully this has been a good recap for you. Ways to stay in touch. For the database updates, we have the DB News blog, which we talked about before, which you can sign up for. The Weekly Genealogist for the digital collections news. We also have our general blog, Vita Brevis. And then anybody has any questions on this, feel free to email us at webmaster@nehgs.org with any questions you might have. Databases and others, we're happy to help you out and get answers for you. So I think I'd like to thank you all for the time today and turn it back to Ginevra.
Thank you, Don. So before we get to your questions, I did want to just let everyone know that we are offering a special discount on new membership this month through the end of April. So when you join as a new member, you can save $20. You just enter the promotion code April Research 20 at the time of online checkout. You can also become a new member over the phone and just mention that promotion code as well. And of course, you can always go to AmericanAncestors.org/join if you're interested in learning more. All right, so with that, let's get to your questions. Go ahead and type your query into the question panel, and we'll try to get through as many as we can in the next few minutes. And a reminder that if we didn't get to your question, you can always contact us at webmaster@nehgs.org, or if you'd like more hands-on help with your research, you can schedule a consultation or hire our research services teams. So let's see, a few questions. Let's see. So Stephen asks, can information found on American ancestors, like images, citations, sources, Don, do you know if that can be kind of auto-copied into a genealogical software program like Roots Magic? Are there kind of clipper tools that you can use to kind of extract that information into another program?
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. Good question. We do have, at least with American Ancestries, which is a online tree product that we make available for anyone who is a guest member at American Ancestors. There's a facility called the Web Clipper, which you can use if you're looking at a search results page at the record level. You can copy and paste the pertinent facts directly from the web page into your genealogical program. At this point, I'm not aware of any other family tree products, online or otherwise, that provide that direct level of integration with the website.
Thanks. Now, Claire asks, do you have to be a member or even subscriber to American Ancestors in order to be a volunteer?
You do not have to be a member. Many of our volunteers are not members. They've been interested. We've given our long-running history with Catholic Records. We have other members of Catholic societies like Tiara, Irish Catholic societies. So if the project is something that's interesting to you, we would be happy to get you engaged and let you participate in the indexing.
Great, and I know that we'd love to have more volunteers, especially during this time. So thank you for anyone who's even thinking about offering and volunteering their time with us. A few people are asking about if you can speak to how the databases on AmericanAncestors.org, how do those maybe generally differ from those on Ancestry or other websites? Approximately maybe how many are unique to American ancestors, and are there some special categories that you would find on our website perhaps and not on others?
Sure. I mean, certainly there are aspects of American Ancestors that are on other sites, like our census support for U.S. censuses is available through us. You can find that at Family Search. You can find that at Ancestry and other places. I would say roughly 200 and some odd of our 468 databases are unique to American ancestors. Some of, I think, the key categories that have unique databases, one is in that the probate file papers. We talked about the Suffolk probate coming out, but all of the actual indexed probate file papers for the state of Massachusetts, for most of the counties in the state, you can't get anywhere else. And that category of journals and periodicals is one that no one else is providing. So we have quite a few journals and periodicals. The New England Historical Genealogical Society Register, the New Vermont Genealogy, Mayflower Descendant, the Pennsylvania Genealogical Journal, Virginia. There's quite a range of them that are all available, and it's really we're very pleased to be able to provide that unique resource to people who are doing research and want to leverage work done by professional people that have had it published in other locations.
Great. And I do also want to mention, because I think one person asked, if we are kind of owned by the same company, such as, Ancestry and Family Search and Fold3. We are a nonprofit, independent organization. We were founded in 1845. We're the oldest and largest genealogical society in the country. We are very much separate from Ancestry and Family Search and other organizations or other for-profit organizations. Well, Ancestry is for-profit. But with that said, we also engage in a number of partnerships with Ancestry and Family Search and trying to make as much of this information available as possible. But we are very much a separate organization. Another question is Stephen asks, is there a master list of databases that non-members can access? So you mentioned going through today's presentation that for some of the databases, you do have to be a member of American Ancestors to access those resources, but we also have kind of a free guest account. How would you learn about what databases are available to guest members?
That's a great question. Using that databases A to Z or the browse database function, one of the filters that's available there is to say just the list of free databases. So that's a radio button on the search form or on that on that page that will list just the databases that are free, and that's approximately 40 some odd databases that are available to our guest members. And to be a guest member, all you have to provide is an email address, and then you have access to those databases.
Right. Let's see, Brian asks, when will all the Catholic Archdiocese records before 1900 be indexed? Do we have an estimate?
So we are looking to try to finish the pre-1900 records in the May-June timeframe. So we're pretty close to having that done. I guess I didn't get into it in this presentation. We did extend our agreement with the Archdiocese to include the period from 1900 to 1920. So the way we're managing that is we'll be delivering the remaining parishes that are left, about 100 some odd parishes are left that have records up to 1900. But as we go through and are doing the indexing now, we actually are indexing up through 1920. So it's not a hard line between the 1900 and 1920 from a parish or book perspective, but we should have everything available for that first 1900 cutoff in about 2 months. And then it'll probably be another year or probably a couple years before we finish everything up through 1920. I think the rough estimate is the records we had from up to 1900 is only slightly larger than the number of records between 1900 and 1920. It was a period of really rapid growth in the Archdiocese of Boston.
And for that database in particular, if someone is having difficulty locating a specific record, maybe a baptism record or something else, you know, the time period seems right, the parish is right, but you're just not finding it, is there someone that you can reach out to, or do you have any suggestions on, you know, how to kind of locate that record?
Yeah, well, I believe we have a reference on searching Catholic records online. If not, there will actually be a new one coming out within a while. So we'll have some documentation on that. But if you're really stuck, feel free to email us at webmaster@nehgs.org, and we're happy to provide some assistance for you.
All right, and just a few more questions. I know that we're almost at the end of our time together today, but Rosemary has an interesting question. Is there an index for the articles published in Vita Brevis? I know that's not a searchable database. It is a great resource on our website. Don, do you know if there is a searchable index or a way to search Vita Brevis on our site?
I believe that you can look at the archived articles from Vita Brevis and do a search within your browser for that. I have to double check. It's not an indexed database style. But basically it is. I believe there is a capability to get a list of the articles and be able to search through that on your browser.
Thanks. And Joyce, one last question. Joyce asks, does a library or institutional subscription, is that the same to kind of an individual subscription? Are you getting the same databases? Are there some benefits to individual membership that perhaps you aren't getting through the library or an institutional membership?
So if you have a library that's, we refer to that as an institutional member, your town library, for example, may have ability to do search on American Ancestors. You have access to everything that's available in our databases on American Ancestors through that subscription. If you would like to take advantage of something like American Ancestries, you're looking for a a vehicle for maintaining your family tree itself, then you would need to be an individual, at least guest member on AmericanAncestors.org to take advantage of that kind of function, because that's tied to an individual as opposed to a group of people.
Certainly, and there are other benefits to individual membership. You get the magazine 4 times a year, and the New England Historical and Genealogical Register, our scholarly journal, 4 times a year, discounts on consultations and research services, and a lot of other great things. So certainly consider becoming a member, and especially take advantage of that member discount that I just mentioned. So if we did not get to your question today, you can reach out to webmaster at nehgs.org, especially if you have any questions about the databases or how to search, or maybe you see something that's transcribed or indexed. Certainly reach out to webmaster at nehgs.org. As I mentioned, if you'd like more hands-on help with your research, you can always consider scheduling a consultation with one of our experts. Those can be done over the phone or online, and that's another popular activity to kind of do while we're all staying at home these days. And you can also consider hiring our research services team if you've hit that brick wall and you need help or research actually done on your behalf. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. As you leave the event, you'll have the opportunity to fill out a survey and give us your feedback as we continue to expand our webinars and online offerings. Any and all feedback is extremely helpful and appreciated. If you'd like to access more how-to resources or learn about upcoming online educational programs, please visit our online learning center at americanancestors.org/education. I hope to see you at our online programs in the future. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye for now.